Okay, so let's jump into modules. Module is another pattern that was not into the 23 time patterns from Gang of 4, but it's still a pattern. It's a structural pattern, and the purpose is to define reusable components with private and public attributes and methods. So it does encapsulation through closures that you guys have just played a little bit with, using the function scope. The precondition is a chunk of code with a return point, and the post condition is a module definition that encapsulates that chunk of code. For example, this is a module using an if called zoo. Zoo here is a function. It has an internal var, which is another function called getBarkStyle. And it will return an object that has two functions, dog and wolf. So those guys are two constructors, function. So dog takes name and breed, just as we have seen before. Wolf just only takes name. We assign the name. And here, this dot bark, we're gonna, both constructors are gonna use the same function, but getBarkStyle takes an attribute, which is a boolean, is howler. If that guy is true, it's gonna be ooh, otherwise, woof. So we're gonna check if the breed, if this is a dog and the breed is equals husky, then getBarkStyle would be true. So that's gonna be the bark style of huskies. Otherwise, normal dogs, regular dogs, because huskies are also normal, but not mine. And wolf just calls getBarkStyle passing through. So we are doing some reuse of functions. So this function is internal to the closure. So you cannot run this function outside of your module. So we're using the closure scope to encapsulate this guy. And we only return two constructors. Okay? So, and we can call this entire thing a module because you get everything in one bar called zoo. And that, since that's an if, we are invoking that guy. And we can use it just doing this way. Var my dog is equals to zoo.dog, and you pass your data and you get your barker, which should behave just like the previous examples. So there is a plunker for that right here. And I've added a wolf called werewolf. So zoo, this is the same code for zoo, except that I converted to ES 2015, so it's using lets and the new function, arrow function, you know, but it's pretty much the same idea, dog and wolf. And this is how we use it. Zoo.dog or zoo.wolf. I'm passing a beagle or a husky. And you can see Sherlock does woof woof, and both whiskey and woof woof, they are howlers. Okay? That's a little introduction to modules. One variation, which is an improvement, is the revealing module. The revealing module adds flexibility to switch items from the private to the public scope. So the only difference is you will define everything as an internal function, as an internal variable. So getBarkStyle, dog, and wolf, they are all defined here. And here, when you return, then you pick which guys you want to expose. The advantage of that is that later, if you no longer want to return wolf, or you no longer want to return dog, or maybe you also want to include getBarkStyle, it's much easier. You can just change here, and you don't need to move these little guys up and down. Because before you would have to move this guy up and down and stuff, and also this adds the flexibility for changing this code. Make sense? Good. And I have a little plunker for that. I think I'm going to jump for now. So why to use modules? Well, global JavaScript could be pretty nasty for performance, reusability, readability, code organization, and it allows side effects. Well, because a module can be delivered as a dependency for another module, right? Modules can be packaged and deployed separately. So that would mitigate the butterfly effect. What is the butterfly effect? The butterfly effect is, let's suppose you have a module A and a module B, but they are global. If they're global, A comes first, B comes later. Inside B, you can even rewrite A, because that code comes after, and no one can prevent you from doing that. So you really can rewrite stuff that has been coded before. So if modules are separate from each other, that can be mitigated. I'm going to talk about how they can be delivered separately. But this is one reason. Modules can bring cohesion up and coupling down. So if we structure the code in different modules, you can create in such a way that A lives separately from B. And that is a good win. And I have more about that, but first I need to talk about module loaders. On the previous example, Zoo is a global var. So being a global var, it's fragile because, as I mentioned, any posterior code can modify or redefine it. Or you can do this var Zoo equals undefined. That's possible. You can do that because it's all global. Secondly, it's not scalable. So what if you want to define 100 modules? You need to have 100 vars below each other and download that big file every time. And it's counterproductive because you have to manually resolve your dependencies. So if you know that module A is needed by module B and module A and B are needed by module C, you need to put A, B, and C in this order. So if you mess up by accident, put B before A, everything's broken, and you don't know why. So it is counterproductive. A module loader will help you by not needing to worry about those details. Here, enter module loaders. A module loader is a container for module registration under aliases. So we can give alias to modules and just say, okay, I need module A, here's module A. I need module B, here's module B. And then you need to get them yourself. Secondly, module loaders can perform dependency injection. So if you say, every time I need a B, I need an A to be injected onto it. You just set up this dependency injection, and every time you get B, A is there. So you can kind of configure the way you want it versus doing it yourself. And you can do modules loading on demand. You can wait until the point you need module C to load it. So you can take the next step and lazy load it, which we're going to talk in the next session. And module loaders are included with your module standard of choice. I'm going to present 3 module standards today. Okay, the first one is Commonjs. Commonjs is a standard for synchronous modules, and the pros are, it's the official Node.js and NPM format. So if you have coded in Node, you have used Commonjs. It offers you a simple and convenient syntax, which is pretty straightforward, and it does guarantee the order of execution of your modules because it's everything synchronous. The cons are, it doesn't naturally work in a browser. However, there are some solutions like Browserify or Webpack where you can kind of combine them and make them ready to be executed on a browser. There is sequential loading of the modules, which is lower than asynchronous, because you cannot load 10 modules in parallel. You need to load 1, and then load 2, load 3, and 4, and 5, and so on. And the NPM dependency tree can skyrocket. So if you have any project, just look into your node modules folder. It's huge. And if you enter inside each one of those folders, then one of your dependencies also has a node modules folder, which also has a load of other things. So this can grow a lot. How to do Commonjs? You just need to know 2 things. First, how to export your module interface using module.export. And secondly, how to import them on the client using required. So here, that's the same Zoo code we have been talking about, but instead of returning, we're doing module.export equals to this interface that has dot involved. So I can create a file, zoo.js, put this code over there, and module.export. Through it, I return the whatever my module is exporting. So here I created a module called zoo. Then I can import requiring this guy in my client.js. So then I have another file client.js, and I assign zoo to require. So dot slash, because it's the same folder, zoo. And here I can just use zoo the same way. So in this way we have broken down this code to a separate file using Commonjs to solve the dependence. Okay? And there's a plunker for that. So for this plunker, because it doesn't work in the browser, I had to use a library called require1k, which kind of makes the magic behind the scenes, but pretty much you can get the same source. So this is that code exporting module.exports, and on the main.js, I require that zoo, I get my content, I instantiate my dogs and my wolf the same way, and everything's printed out. Okay so far? Good. So that was Commonjs. Now the second module standard is AMD. Yes? Okay, it's called, I have used require1k just because it was very quick to be downloaded, but I would recommend you to look into Webpack or Browserify, because Webpack or Browserify will prepare your module during the build time. This guy is using runtime, so it's not as good for performance. That was just for the example. AMD, it's a standard for asynchronous modules. It stands for asynchronous module definition. And the pros are multiple modules can be loaded in parallel. So if you have 10 modules, you can load them at the same time. It naturally works on the browser, and it is easy to lazy load modules, which means you can wait until the user clicks on the button to load the next screen and require the code, and so on. The cons, it is more complex. It is easy to create race conditions, because if you have the same thing needed by two guys, and the first one's gonna run it first, you never know which module is gonna come first. So that can be a problem. It doesn't guarantee the order of execution of modules, because it's asynchronous. Just like some people here were getting Paris before San Francisco before Paris, same reason. And the dependencies array gets hard to read, because you're gonna see that all the dependencies are gonna be loaded in an array, and if that array is big, it becomes harder for you to make sense of it. So AMD is a standard, but the most used library is require.js. And to use require.js, it's pretty much the same two rules. You have to export your module interface using define, and you import on a client using require. So here we are defining, and one thing that you can do here, you can create an alias. So I'm creating an alias for this called zoo. So I don't need to refer to the file. So if I can say zoo is my alias, this is a dependency array, but my module zoo doesn't depend on anything, and it takes a function that is the same code with this, but I will return instead of module export, I'm returning my interface. And this is how I would use it. So I would require zoo from the alias that is inside the dependencies array, and it arrives to me as a function, as an attribute here, zoo, actually as an object. So you can use zoo the same way you did before, but that's going to follow the order. So if you have zoo and dog and cat and wolf and more guys, you're going to receive them in the same order inside the function. Okay? View on plunker. Now that's the That's not the right file. Here, MD, I guess? Oh, I may have the wrong link. Well, I'm gonna fix it, sorry. I think I messed it up. But I'm gonna provide you guys later, but pretty much you need the require.js library, and that file, that code would work just the same way Commonjs example. Sorry about that. I'm gonna fix it and I'm gonna post, okay, on the meetup, and then you guys can check that out. Okay? All right. I wanted to jump to the next one now, if that's okay. So ES 2015 modules. So ES 2015 offers native modules, which are quite a bit similar to CommonJS. So this is an example. So we can have a file called VJS, and for each one of the functions, we can have export. So if you create a function dot and you put export behind, before it's going to get exported to the map, to the module. The same thing with both. The dot and both are both exported from this module. And the way to import them is very interesting. So we're going to use import, and this is another thing from the F-15. This is an object deconstructor, destructor, I guess. So we create an object, and we can name dog and wolf, like the things that we are interested on the module. So I receive dog and wolf as variables here. And I think I'm missing the code that does new. Sorry about that again. But from here you can just do new to dog and new to wolf and console log them. And hopefully I won't have messed up on this one. Okay. Yeah. So this is my zoo module. Same thing here, let, and I export function dog and export function wolf. On main.js, I import dog and wolf from zoo. And here is the same thing. I do my new dog, because I don't need to do zoo.dog because I'm requiring the variables directly from the module. Which is cool because you don't have to import variables that you're not interested in. So let's say you just want dog. Even though zoo exports dog and wolf, you could have done this if you don't want wolf, and it would have been okay. So there was yes. Here in this example, I'm using something called system.js just to load the modules because Plunker doesn't have native support for that. So I'm using system.js with this config file, but you don't need to worry much with that. You can just focus that I'm importing main, and main imports dog and wolf from zoo. Okay? Any questions? It's synchronous. So this is just like Commonjs, synchronous. There is a standard for asynchronous I'm going to show soon. Yeah? It is more common to do synchronous. So normally, if you are on the server side, you pretty much do synchronous all the time because it doesn't matter much. But if you are on the client side, then you are concerned about performance. Probably don't want to download everything at once. So then you can do asynchronous to lazy load or to wait until something is needed so that you can load it. So if you want to do asynchronous loading using ES 2015, you can use system.js for that. So I'm going to cover that in my second session about lazy loading. But system.js, the same way we're doing system.import here. So here I'm importing main. I could, actually this guy is a promise. So I could do then in another function that receives main, and then here I use main, something like that. So this guy could work as a promise, and I could use this construct to do asynchronous. So main would only be executed after it's fetched from this guy. Okay? But I can cover that on the second section. Cool? So, as I mentioned, they are not natively supported by browsers and Node. Actually, I take that back. They're almost there. So Chrome, no, I'm sorry. I think Edge. I don't know why, but Edge was the first one to implement it natively. But you need to turn on the experimental options, not by default. But the browser are trying to, release this guy, and so still you need to use Babel and probably System.js as well. But very soon you're going to be able to use it natively. So, as I mentioned, I suggest you to consider a module loader like System. So System.js supports all of them: AMD, Commonjs, ES2015, and global. So you can use just one way to load the modules, and they could be written in Commonjs or required. So you could, through npm, use a library that came to you in Commonjs format, and using AMD, use another vendor that supports AMD. You can have all those different modules working in your code using System. Okay. All right. So challenge 2, and I know we could be a little bit behind on time, so it's okay if we start but finish at home. I mean, I will be here to help you guys, but no problem. I'm sorry it got a little bit of delay with the food and with me getting carried away. So fork, what do you need to do? Fork from this. This solution is the same solution as challenge 1. So you can either use your challenge 1 or you can use mine, which is done. And I didn't share with you before, of course. Now you're gonna copy over the main.js from your challenge 1. Oh, sorry. Let me take this back. The first one is not the solution. The first one is a setup. So I created a blank setup for ES515 using Babel and using System.js. So then you're going to copy the main.js from your challenge 1 or use the solution. We're going to break down main.js into 3 modules. So location.js, there's going to be a file only for it. Get current weather, we're going to move the guy to another module, and main. So the place that you do new, and call my current weather is going to be separated from location get current weather. Okay, so that's the challenge. And when exporting or importing a single item, because in the case of location get current weather, there's going to be just one thing to be exported. So you're going to use default. So when you export location, you're going to export default location. And when you import like location from the file. I'm just showing you this because my example was a little bit different. So my example, I'm gonna go back to my example. In my example, I exported 2 things. I exported a function dot, I exported a function whole. So the result was an object that contains do and both. And we imported as an object. So this is like just the way it's exported. So we chose the 2 attributes that we are interested. But in the challenge, in the case of location, there is only one thing. So you can use export default. If you do export default, then you don't need to put the curly braces around the module. Actually, if you don't put default, it's okay, but then you have to put the curly braces. I'm just showing you guys another way to do it.